I sit next to her. Right.
Most of them never went anywhere. But he can't.
Yeah, all you needed.
Because what they would do is they'd take a lot of thing with them.
Right. Yeah.
The big thing, all of them, so much larger than I am.
Maybe it's a scam.
That's a good day.
So that's like, well, you're on $20. You know, that's the story. Lesson learned. Yeah. But now, what's his back? We want to know what's next. He'd like to cash out. Now he's poor. He's a little bit. He's in the issues. Yeah. 18-year-old liquidity issues. There we go. I guess we want to stop.
All right. Let's get it? All right. Huh? No one can. Yeah, I'm not listening to everything. I am licensed in Nevada, too.
Are they moving to Arizona? Or there's just an email and there's nothing on there.
There's just a lot of exclamation points, so we should
There's
be
a lot of
excited.
exclamation points. We should get excited and take it very seriously.
I love professional emails.
Are we live? We are. We let them know we're live.
All right, we are live.
Okay.
Ready?
Yep. You guys ready? I'd like to call this regular session of the Madison Elementary School District Board to order. Ms. Humphries, please call the roll.
President Holcomb,
Here.
Vice President Gresham, Member Causey,
Here.
Member Spear,
Here.
Member Thompson.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. First on our agenda is the adoption of the agenda. Excuse me. Does anyone have any changes, staff or the board have any changes to the agenda? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion to adopt the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Excuse me. I'm getting a cough. Moved by Ms. Spears, seconded by Ms. Thompson. Please vote. And that passes 4-0. Next on the agenda is a call for executive session. I understand we have a basis for having an executive session this evening, so I will entertain a motion to adjourn to executive session.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Spears, second by Ms. Causey. Please vote. Oh, Ms. Thompson, I'm sorry.
I know it happened again.
And I see, now I know why you don't like me. And that passes. We are now adjourning to executive session.
Am I allowed to ask, or can I ask you a tech question? Don't, please. I think we've met, I'm Katie. It's nice to meet you. Oh, I saw your name come on. Congratulations.
Thank you. Your, from your experiences.
Every, so,
It's actually close. Probably will be.
I have a teacher who's been on maternity. I'm going to be working too, but my custodial staff is not.
You're right.
Ours did not for a while, and I let her say no. I don't know if somebody like silenced the thing, but I one time was on automatic pilot and then hear the beep. And I got oh. It did not. So, but I let her say no. I don't know if it's been fixed. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt your conversation. It was really nice to meet
It
you.
was really good to meet you too. I'm glad to put a face.
Yeah, you too. Hello. Hi.
There's no
Oh yeah, for the meeting.
I saw black people in the back.
I think they're meeting previously. Musics that were there. Taking notes.
Not the other way around.
Did I just completely confuse you with we today? Oh. Sorry. Tried to keep the template, and I'm like, this is what. It's not sure.
Hello?
Hi, Ms. Gresham. They're still in executive session.
Oh, okay, good. I was worried I was late.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Right.
I'm surprised. Do we have Karen on?
Karen, are you present? Karen, are you present?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, thank you. We just got out of executive session and Scott will reconvene the meeting.
Okay, thanks.
Yes, I will. I'd like to reconvene this meeting of the Madison School Board. Next up on our agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. Ms. Thompson, would you like to lead us in the pledge?
I'm happy to. Please join me in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
That brings us to the superintendent report. Dr. Guerin.
President Holcomb, members of the board, cabinet, and guests, congratulations to Deputy Superintendent Lori Garvey and her staff on receiving the ASBO International Certificate of Excellence in Financial Reporting for the fiscal year 2022. It's the annual comprehensive financial report. Our participation in the COE program for 33 years is a testament to the district's commitment to transparency and high-quality financial reporting. Congratulations, Ms. Garvey and her hardworking team. Congratulations are also in order to the Madison Center for the Arts for being named the New Times Best of Phoenix Best Performing Arts Center. Very exciting. The competition was tough and we came out on top. Madison will have 2 items on the ballot for the November 5th election. It is important to note that this is a mail-in ballot-only election. Early voting ballots will be mailed on October 11th, and the last day to receive ballots is on November 7th. Voters in the Madison community will decide on 2 questions relating to the Madison School District. Voters will decide whether to continue the current 15% maintenance and operations override, which will maintain programs that have been in place with prior years' override approvals. M&O funding supports the operations of the school district, such as salaries, curriculum, benefits, student and staff support. Voters will also decide whether to authorize the district to issue $105 million in bonds to proceed with funding safety, security, school facilities, efficiencies, and modernization projects. Continuation of the M&O override and approval of the bond is not expected to increase property taxes. Please do not hesitate to let me or Ms. Garvey know if you have any questions about the M&O bond or the M&O override or bond.
Thank you. Ms. Spear.
Thank you very much. I wanted to let everyone know that I had an opportunity to attend the latest MSD38 meeting. It was last week, so I got to hear from both classified and certified staff on how things are going, and one of the things that a piece of information that was shared with me is that a lot of our parents are sending supportive emails and are expressing their gratitude and appreciation for our teachers, and that it is buoying our staff spirits. And so I wanted to extend my own gratitude to those parents who are sharing their well wishes and thoughts, and let them know that it really does make a difference in the lives of our teachers. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Cuzzy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to congratulate Ms. Garvey and her team. It is such an amazing accomplishment that we continue to see every single year. And it's sad to say that we expect it because of the extraordinary work you do, but not every district has the extraordinary talent that we have. So thank you. I wanted to let the board know that I will be attending the ASBA county meeting on October 16th so that our voice is heard during the vote for the new county representatives. So if you have any thoughts, we have some candidates that I think are supportive of writing the ASBA in a way that is both board and transparent. And so if you have any feedback or insight you'd like to share, I'd be happy to listen to it. And then finally, I had the opportunity to attend at Madison Park a ruler training that was conducted by the counselor and the social worker. And I knew a little bit about Ruler, which is our social emotional learning program that we use. And what I found, it's an extraordinary program. And there was a parent and a student there that I sat with, and he was able to share how it has helped him on days when he's having a hard time to express how he's feeling. But what I loved about Ruler more than anything is that no matter where you are on the mood meter, there is value in it, especially as it pertains to learning. And I loved that was positive, that, maybe you had a rough day and rough time in the morning to get to school, and so you're a little stressed out, but that there was a positive spin to that. And I just was really impressed by that. So I encourage my fellow board members, if you have an opportunity, to attend a training, because it was so much more than I thought the program entailed. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Thompson.
I want to echo congratulations to Ms. Garvey and her team. Thanks for all you do to keep the fiscal ship running soundly. I also have had an opportunity in this past week to meet with the leadership of the Reach Council. I believe they're going to be reaching out to other board members as well. They're excited to be working with Mr. George on the transition of the Reach program over to the Park campus, and happy to participate and not only do things that benefit the Reach students, but the district as a whole. So they'll be reaching out to other board members in the coming weeks. That's all I have.
Ms. Gresham.
Thank you. Hopefully you can hear me okay. I will also congratulate the finance team on their award, very well deserved. And thank you, Mitra, for going to the county meeting. I will look forward to what happens there. Sorry, I'm calling in. I'm at Maryville High School. We just had our last regular cross-country meet of the season. So we have semis and finals after that. So let's see. It's been a fun week. I got to go to the Hungry Caterpillar where all the preschoolers went at the Center for the Arts, and it was the cutest thing I've ever seen. Hopefully most of you got to go to that. It was great. And then let's see, we made the Spanish immersion classes from Madison number 1, went to the Madison and made tortillas in the lobby. We made tortillas and quesadillas, and so I helped out with the dangerous grilling part, but they had a lot of fun, and, of course, all their instruction and everything was in Espanol. So lastly, I also got to attend the celebration for public schools a couple weekends ago, put on by Save Our Schools. So it was really nice to hear from the speakers and come together with so many public school supporters and advocates. So that was great, and that should do it. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, I also want to thank Ms. Garvey for having such a continuous record, of excellence, and it has given us such a strong foundation to grow on, and we have some foundation on the educational side now too. But having that strong, consistent financial foundation is a huge plus to the district. I actually had an opportunity to go and to the Future Engineers Assembly or program that they had to kick off at Meadows, because I'm really a frustrated engineer at heart. But what was really, really impressive about that, not only did they adopt STEAM completely, but there was a real push on getting more girls and women into the technical fields, and that was emphasized over and over and over. And it's true. There are I make more sense that way. There's such great careers in the technical side at all levels that are available to women now, and being able to sort of light that spark for young girls as well as young boys, I thought it was very important. And I did get to go to I didn't go to the Friday Caterpillar, but the Hungry Caterpillar was a phenomenal experience for kids of all ages, as I proved. But it was wonderful. In fact, we took my mother-in-law, who's almost 90 years old. She thought it was great as well. And there's the outrageous, and Ms. Kelly, I'm blanking. When is that? November?
Is it the 17th?
November 17th?
Is that correct? Yes, November 17th is a VIP event for Outrageous in support of the Madison Education Foundation. So if you buy a ticket to Outrageous, and then you buy for the VIP event, and you'll have some food, some drink. You'll go see Outrageous, in which there'll be actually some artwork created during the performance. That artwork will be raffled, and then after the performance, there'll be dessert served. So lots of time to visit, celebrate art, and celebrate the district on the 17th. So hopefully everyone can join us.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. And if you have season tickets, you have to call in, but I've already got my season tickets in for that. I'm really looking forward to that event. And with that, go to the next item, which is the consent agenda. So staff or the board want to remove any items from the consent agenda. Seeing none, I will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Mr. Chair, I move we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Kaze, seconded by Ms. Thompson. Please vote.
I will vote aye. I have to voice vote.
And that passes unanimously. Next up is the calls to the public. Do we have any calls to the public?
We do not have any calls to public.
All right, thank you very much. Next up after that then is board policy. This is a first read of the policy on medicines and administering medicines to children. Dr. Guerin.
President Holcomb, Vice President Gresham, board members, cabinet, and guests. I'd like to turn this over to Assistant Superintendent Barb Marshall.
Thank you, President Holcomb, governing board members, members of cabinet. We do bring forward another policy for first read, and this is on the medicines and administering medicines to students. Last year, there were some changes to state law allowing students to carry EpiPens, and there was also changes to the law regarding seizures and missing one, the inhalers, thank you, and inhalers. And so this again is policy catching up with legislation. It differs a little bit from what was recommended by the policy advisors from ASBA, specifically that Section B, the legal counsel for Madison that reviewed it, just felt we could strengthen this a little bit more by being very clear on which medicines the students are able to carry. And so even though that's in law, just having it more clearly stated within the policy there. One thing that you will not see in the policy is the seizure management plans. And again, from the advice of legal counsel, they felt that it was just taking the legislation and word for word putting the legislation in the policy. And her recommendation is that for protection, we want the uniformity across all 8 Madison schools, and that will be addressed in the regulation. We do have the regulation attached. The attorney was not aware that we normally bring that regulation with first read. So you may find in the second read that there will be some changes specifically addressing the seizure management plan of the legislation. But the recommendation was, rather than just repeating legislation within policy, keep the policy as clean and as simple as possible, and then have that regulation for the consistency across all 8 schools. So again, we bring the policy forward for a first read, and again, it's just to in alignment with state law for that allowance for the EpiPens, the inhalers on campuses.
Any comments or questions from the board? Ms. Thompson.
Just very briefly, I'm glad to see that we're able to do this. I know my kiddo is asthmatic and has talked about, to me, he said, well, I thought about going to get a puff, but by the time I had to walk all the way over to the nurse's office, I might have been okay, or it wasn't worth it to me. So I think that being able for kids who need it to have it with them, I think is going to be incredibly helpful, be it an EpiPen or seizure medication or inhalers. So I'm glad that we're able to address this.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Ms. Gresham, do you have any questions or comments?
No, I'm fine, thank you.
Thank you. I just want to compliment you, Ms. Marshall, on that, and taking the extra mile to, really think about, what the policies are and make them work for us. I am very big advocate of exactly the approach you took, which is taking the policy, making the policy clear, and then deal with the specifics in the regulation. That's a very good way. So I appreciate the effort there.
Thank you. You will notice on that policy next to that JLCD, we won't have that copyright symbol from ASBA because through our legal counsel recommendation, we have changed the language from the recommendation from ASBA.
Well, good. We should register for our own copyright. I can help you with that.
Thank you.
Right. Thank you. That brings us up to item 8.1, the resolution authorizing change order to project 20-21-03. Dr. Guerin.
President Holcomb, members of the board, cabinet, and guests. Deputy Superintendent Lori Garvey will share two different change orders with us, 8.1 and 8.2.
Thank you, Dr. Guerin. Good evening, Mr. President, members of the board, Dr. Guerin and cabinet. The first change order tonight is for architectural services for Madison Park. As we went through Madison Park, we're building this beautiful school. We started to look district-wide as well at some programs and the sizes of other schools and the needs, and determined that the REACH program will be moving to Madison Park. So there is a need for some additional classrooms in the future. And this change order would allow ADM, the current architect on Madison Park rebuild, to design a classroom addition of approximately 4 classrooms with restrooms. And so the change order for that and the resolution attached to allow them to begin work is here for your approval tonight. Are there any questions?
Question, what's showing up here was the track change order. Are we talking about the same change order?
I'm sorry, I was on 8.2. I will now.
Welcome back. You should visit more often.
I'm looking at 8.1 and reading 8.2, right? I'm very sorry about that.
Yeah.
I should have left my glasses on. There's a problem. So I'm very sorry for that. So the first change order that we do have is actually to Chase Building Team for the guaranteed maximum price. The main or one of the largest items on this change order, as you can see, for $344,000 is the rubberized running track. Just to give you a little history on this project to rubberize the running track at Park has been in existence for a while. It's been talked about for a long time. It was part of the original design, I should say, or as we went into our committee meetings for design before we knew what was happening with the cost of construction and how everything was going. So it was an item that we did put, that we value engineered out, but put it still on a contingency list should we have any contingency funds left. We are not going to, however, Chase Building Team, who's the contractor on the project, did come to us and said, you know, this is what they knew, how it was at the heart of so many conversations, that while the full cost is $650,000, we are paying for a DG track that required some extra drainage and curbing. So when you subtract out the cost of that track, the cost to put in the rubberized track is an additional $344,000. And administration is looking at this as something that would be fiscally responsible to do, because if you would do it going into the future, you've now paid the $305,000 for the DG track that you would be then taking out and paying the full price for a rubberized track. So that comes to you. The BDA system here for $76,000. After design, there is a fire test done, and they come out and perform it. And we did need to add a little bit beefier system that could be heard. It's an alarm emergency management system that can be heard throughout, and we did need to add that. And then the last item here is for utility lines. It's stub out for future utilities for the building that I just mentioned, or the classrooms that I wrongly mentioned for this one. So it would be allowing us at this time to bring those utilities out to where the proposed classrooms would go for $72,000. This brings the entire project, or this entire change order, to $492,753. And it is also the recommendation that this is funded with our school plant fund, and when the school plant accounts for long-term lease revenue, and part of that is what we do receive from Madison Highland Prep, who is on the campus as well of Madison Park.
Thank you. Ms. Kazi.
So a little story, I ran track in middle school, and we ran on a DG track as well as inside, because I grew up in Illinois. and I have permanent chin splints from that experience, which is what my doctor told me, that we should not have been running on that. So I am happy to see this because I think that it impacts growing bodies and the health and safety of our students. I'm also curious, a decomposed granite, when it rains, you can't have your meat. It is a challenging surface. I also assume there are maintenance issues with it every year as opposed to year 5 and 10 with the rubberized track. Can you give me any guidance on that? Is my assumption correct?
Sure, I can talk about the one that's up here. It does have that recommended life of 15 years with a coating, an additional protective coating at years 5 and 10. As we do with any of our other surfaces that we have, we do an annual maintenance. It may not be as large, and this $100,000 is like today's cost for it. May not be as large as $100,000, but we always do whatever maintenance is recommended, whether we can do it, whether we need help doing it. We have rubberized play surfaces throughout the district as well, so they as well would go on that maintenance cycle, whether it be if there are divots out, they come and they patch it. So you do a lot more smaller maintenance, and this here would be a larger maintenance item throughout. But it would again all become part of our preventative maintenance system.
Thank you so much.
Ms. Spear.
Thank you. I really am so glad to see that this track is now going to be included. When the bond election was held in 2008, I happened to be the chair of the bond committee and also that bond campaign. This is prior to my tenure here on this board. And in meeting with the Madison Park community, that track was very much something that they wanted. Track and Ms. DeFay, the teacher who has run the track program at Madison Park for years and years and years, has talked extensively about this, as have community members and neighbors in that area. In addition to that, this track gives Madison an opportunity to add it to the portfolio of properties and assets, community assets that we do have, that we are able to rent to traveling track competitions and the like. There are not that many rubberized tracks within this area that are available. And so I really do see an opportunity for increased revenue as well that will help offset the life cycle management that we expect to incur. So I'm glad to see this, and I believe this is a good fiscal investment.
Ms. Gresham, I know you probably don't have any interest in the track at all, but I'd go out on a limb here and see if you had any comments.
Yes, and I used to run on that, the dirt track that they used to have, and it wasn't even a 400-meter track. It was off, so it was like longer or something. So I'm happy to see that, and I actually have a question. So along with community use, which would be great, and for our own students, for the track teams, we usually go and we borrow other high schools' tracks so we can do district-wide meets. So this will be great that we can do them at Park. I'm wondering, will there be other, like a long jump pit or any other, I forget what else we need, but any of those are going to be installed? Because if we are going to rent it for other schools or competitions, we would need like kind of a other besides just the track. So I'm just curious about that.
Thank you, Mrs. Gresham. The answer to that is we at this moment don't have the long jump or the vaulting built into this project, but it could certainly enter another phase as we look at projects and the needs of our programs.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, I support this for sure.
Thank you. My comment is built like I am, I never ran track. I walked it a lot, but never. But I think what to me is important is this also demonstrates, some of the financial acumen that is used in doing this, and Mr. Calvin, and that our whole team. Not value engineering is not just reducing price. It's looking at the long-term investment in the price and what you get the bang for your buck. And as you described it, that's value engineering at its finest, and for the proper purpose. Is actually, can we get more value and get more, put our money to better use? And so I really appreciate that, because there's a lot of times you don't see that. And so thank you for that. That requires, oops, I'm pushing my button here. That requires an action. So I will entertain a motion. Unless there are other comments, I'll entertain a motion to adopt the resolution.
So moved.
I will second the motion.
Moved by Ms. Thompson, seconded by Ms. Spear. Please vote.
I vote aye.
And that passes unanimously. That brings us to the 8.2. We've already had a show of coming attractions on that change order, but Ms. Garvey.
Good evening again, Mr. President, members of the board, Dr. Guerin and Cabinet. As I mentioned, this is for architectural services for an additional 4 classrooms at Madison Park, and administration is bringing that forward for approval.
Any questions, comments? No. Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to adopt the resolution approving this change order.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Thompson, second by Ms. Kazi. Please vote.
Aye.
And that also passes unanimously. That brings us to item 8.3, the fiscal year 2023 annual fiscal financial report. Dr. Guerin.
President Holcomb, Vice President Gresham, members of the board, cabinet, and guests, I am excited to present the future award-winning fiscal year fiscal in advance. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. President, members of the board, Dr. Guerin and Cabinet. I'm very pleased tonight to be able to present to you the annual financial report, which summarizes all of our financial transactions for the previous school year. It is due to ADE by October 15th, and as we go through our audit this fall for last school year, we actually take this annual financial report and it becomes an annual comprehensive financial report where a lot more things are added to it. But this is the one on the prescribed forms that all school districts do fill out. So I will go through all the pages here of that report with you. And the first page summarizes our revenues in the maintenance and operation and capital fund. As you can see here, we have a little over, and I'm sorry, the numbers got cut off, but 14, actually they didn't, it's just a comma, 14,352 in county equalization. It's a very slim portion that's going away and being phased out. So it's the last year that we will be seeing this. Our investment income was 343,790, and that is from interest that is earned at the county from our M&O cash balance and our unrestricted cash balance. The property owners through tax rates have they contributed 27.6 million, which is 58.2% of the overall revenue for both of those funds. And then state aid makes up the balance at 19.4 million or 41%. Our M&O fund, our maintenance and operations, which is the daily operations of the district, is divided into 3 different programs. Regular education, special education, and transportation. You can see regular ed is at just almost 32 million, 77.42% of that M&O budget. Special ed at 7.1 at 17.32%, which pretty closely mirrors the SPED population of the district, as a side note. And then transportation at 5.2% at almost 2 million. The report further breaks it down by function. So how are these dollars spent? When you look at instruction, and that's direct instruction into the classroom at 48.8%, the Auditor General now is including, because we do understand the importance that other direct services have to the student on instruction. We do include instruction support and staff support. So you have 10% for instruction support and 5.7% for staff support. Even though it does say staff support, this is a lot of our special ed services for students. So it's social workers, counselors, speech therapists, OT. So it's the whole gamut. Even though it says staff support, it really supports students. Then we have school administration. You can see it's 6.8%, central administration at 8.3%, maintenance at 14.3, transportation at that 5.3, and then non-instructional services is at 0.9%. That is the food service match that we are required by the federal government. Since we receive federal monies, we have to do a certain match, and that's what that is. With that, then, we look at the classroom site fund, which is on page 3, total expenditures there. But the reason we look at this is it does shift the expenditures a little bit. The classroom site fund in Madison goes completely to teacher-based pay and to pay for performance. So it really is our complete package when we look at what are we spending in the classroom, and that did boost it up to 52.2 for direct instruction into the classroom. We also further look at this report by object. So salaries and benefits, and this is, again, we're just looking at our maintenance and operations. There's many ways to slice that up, but we have 34.7 million going into salaries and benefits. And then the next largest one there is purchase service at 8.2. You can see utilities comes in at 4.9%, and that's just of the M&O fund. We do have other funds that are picking up some utilities as well. So it's a large expense for the district. And then we have 1.1 million in supplies. And miscellaneous things like dues and fees, they're not a very large percentage. When we look at then, well, what do all these numbers really mean? And you talk about salaries and benefits. I just think it's a nice picture to see how many staff get paid out of just the maintenance and operation fund and what it takes to run a school district. So for Madison, we have out of M&O 308 certified staff and 187 classified staff members for total salaries of 25.5 million and then benefits at 9 million. And you can see how that breaks down between health insurance and Social Security, and ASRS is the state retirement system that we're required to pay in. That feeds right into our average teacher salary, which is listed on page 7, but thought it would be a good place to put it here. Our average teacher salary last year was $61,207. That is before any of the benefits that are added to that package. So once you add insurance, retirement, that Social Security component, the average teacher is $81,462. That was an increase from the prior year on base salary of 7.1%. Some other things just to point out in the M&O expenditures, professional development was $96,389. We continue that commitment towards providing professional development alignment with our strategic plan and developing our staff. The expenditures for gifted pupils is pulled out in a few places. We do expend $654,000, which is very different from the funding that we receive, which is give or take $50,000. So but at least we're getting something. This year was the first year that we're receiving an additional weight. I put this here because transportation comes up quite a bit, but it also comes up because when we look at the dollars in the classroom report that will be coming out, we generally do tend to see this as a high cost value or cost for the district, but we are transporting almost 100 more students this year than the prior year. So that's good that we've seen ridership go up. We're at 862. We drive 683.4 miles a day throughout a district that's 15 square miles. So that's pretty impressive. 121,000 miles for the entire year. The cost per mile is $17.83. The fuel is $112,000, up from $90,000 the year before, and we're running about the same routes. So just so you can see, that's quite an increase just in fuel costs. Now we go on to the classroom site fund. Again, as I mentioned before, it all goes into certified teacher base pay and pay for performance. It's 12% of all teachers' base pay. It comes to $2.4 million that goes in there. And then the teacher pay for performance last year was $1.2 million. An average per teacher of $3,200. The max was $3,400. So most teachers did receive the maximum. On page 4 of the AFR, we have capital expenditures by object. It lists the override. The override is spent on the categories approved by the voters, and these items here have all fallen into those categories. So we have our copiers, we have our textbooks. This is not for textbook adoption. I just want to point out we did not have a textbook adoption. We are earmarking that money for this year. As you can see, materials are on display, and we will be starting another cycle of textbook adoptions. But this is for new sections and some replacement books throughout. We have instructional aids that are supplemental materials to our textbooks. And then this is something different this year, and it's going to start this year and continue, but really breaking out the cost of software and technology. So even though we can put instructional software that's a year less under that instructional aid category, we are now having to separate it out on our reports. So much is shifting into software that I think, as you can see here, the costs can kind of be not what one would anticipate when you think, but all of our software subscriptions now are required to go here as a broken out category. So we have instructional software licensing at 1.4. Typically before, this does include the library Follett system. Typically before, you would have seen this just under library or library books, and you would have seen things under textbooks, and now they're under instead this software licensing. And it's also broken into two categories, non-instructional and instructional. So you can see the next line is non-instructional software, and then we have a portion of the override for preventative maintenance. The expenditures for the override this year totaled almost $2.3 million. Then we do receive some unrestricted capital funds, and we did have some instructional software go into there, some non-instructional software, some technology hardware. This could be monitors, could be a few replacement smart boards, and it could be some computers. And then the balance of unrestricted capital is in that preventative maintenance.
Could I ask a quick question? What would be an example of that non-instructional software?
Okay, so for example, non-instructional software could be PowerSchool. It could be the financial system that runs the district. So it's our Gmail system. It's anything that's not directed in the classroom, and it's a lot of items.
Thank you.
Yeah. And then we have our bond building fund. This year we had 36.8, almost $36.9 million in expenditures. These are the major items that they hit. We hit the lobby, and a lot of these were due to safety renovations. So it's the lobby was for safety, the window treatments, the security cameras, all for safety and security. We had the #1 dining commons renovation. Obviously, we're still in the Madison Park rebuild. We had classroom furniture for the rebuild, and then some technology that went out there as well. And we did have a bus purchase. When we look at our federal projects, and they are listed on page 5, I believe, the total federal projects were $4.7 million last year. These are the major ones. When I say major, they were over $15,000 in expenditures. We did have a few that were quite a bit less that aren't listed here, but you can see Title I at $525, Title II, which is professional development, IDEA Part B, that's our special ed additional federal funding for $1.2 million, Johnson O'Malley, and then Medicaid at $190,000. Our other federal is lumped into one number, but these are some pretty significant grants and some pretty significant numbers, so I thought I would break them out. We have ESSER 3, where we have $1 million in expenditures. We have about $2 million left going into this year. The expiration for that will be September of 2024. It is the last of our ESSER funds. When you look in total, we received, I believe, over $5 million in ESSERs. This really is whittling down. And if you were looking at page 2 of the AFR with the transportation expenditures, you will see they went up by quite a high percentage, 40-some%. You'll see plant maintenance went up 18%. That was due because we had paid for some of those things in the prior year out of ESSER. Now we had to transfer them back. So if you see those percentages go up, please don't be alarmed by that. It's not because they had a significant increase. It's how we funded them in the prior years. So we have our ESSER 3, we have the ESSER School Safety, which was our first round of social workers that we received. The Emergency Connectivity Fund that we did receive $1.2 million for to help with district-wide connectivity for internet and our broadband. Then we had a grant in there also for targeted support and improvement. We had $16,000 in expenditures. And then we have our state projects, and we had 4 that top that list. We have our results-based funding. We had $711,000 in expenditures. This was the last year of results-based funding, so that those expenditures now have to be absorbed into our budget in another way. We received the air quality grant for $202,000. This was for an electric bus. It was a matching grant, so the district had to pay for half of it, which came out of bond, and then half came out of the air quality grant. We had the school safety expansion for more social workers, counselors for $178,000, and then we had the Arizona K-12 grant with $55,900 in expenditures. That was our state grants. So you can see there's a lot of different funds that keep us going, and we'll continue on with food services. Revenue in food services was $3.6 million, $3.7 million. Expenditures were $3.4 before the indirect cost. Food services did contribute to our indirect fund, which goes to offset the operational cost of payroll, of HR, of utilities, because they're not charged those things, but yet they need them to run their program. Their program is 100% self-sustaining, and they do actually have a fund balance that they maintain. So they give to the district, actually, and they're a really big support to us instead of requiring us to help them. They have 39 staff members, and last year they served 164,000 breakfasts and 601,000 lunches. And then rounding out our other fund expenditures, our instructional improvement fund. This fund goes to pay for the addendums that we put out for SPED teachers, for self-contained teachers. That all comes out of there. Our school plant civic center, I combine these because they're both lease or rentals. School plant accounts for leases over 12 months. So that would be, for example, our lease with Madison Highland Prep that's multi-year. Civic Center is our annual rentals. So people that come to use our schools, our facilities, it could be a track, whichever they do. Currently, the district is receiving about $30,000 a month in rentals alone from our facility. So that's awesome, and we're continuing to look for ways to invite the community in to use our facilities, as we would really like to be that community partner hub for everyone here. Community education expenditures, almost $7.5 million. As you can see, they're also a very large operation. They help offset some expenditures for the district as well. We have our extracurricular activities. This is the money that is collected through the tax credits that people donate to the district. $625,000 in expenditures last year. Gifts and donations, $202,000. The indirect costs, we talked about what that covers, those expenditures. And then student activities are on our books, but this is the money that is raised by student clubs. So last year, student clubs spent $70,094, which is mainly at the middle schools. There is a very small portion spent at elementary, but mostly the middle. Yeah.
So community ed includes not just our after school, before school program, camps, but also preschool. Is that correct? Okay, thank you.
Yes, that's where district preschool goes. On a page in there too, on page 7, there's other information, just some interesting information that one might like to know about the district. The first one is the district does receive back $12,662 is what we've received last year when we pay our vendors electronically. So we get something back instead of having to write a check. So we're it actually increased 5,000 from the year before. So we are constantly trying to get new vendors to sign up onto this program so that we can get some incentive from that. Our bonds outstanding are 116 million at June 30, and the bonds that were retired during 2023 were 12.7 million. Our external audit is $54,000. That was the other item on that page. When you look at our total expenditures, this would be the summary tab in the AFR. I think it just lists all our funds. You can see how many there are. You don't obviously can't see them unless you really enlarge that. But just so you see, if you add up the expenditures column in total, it is 121,792,000. So it's quite substantial. And this is what we manage, and with the board's help, every year. After the summary comes a new page to the annual financial report this year. So I'm going to spend a little bit more time on it right now just because it is a new page, and if people have questions out there on how we manage funds, I'm just really pleased to report that we do have a fund balance reserve, and a fund balance as far as a school district goes really equates to how much cash do you have that you don't, that's not budgeted for something that you have for short-term, for expended, like a budget cut, for unexpected expenditures. How much do you have set aside that you're planning for the future? We are, as you know, we do, well, the board approves it, we do long-range planning. So we don't just look for the next year, we look out to the future, and we try to determine how much do we think that we need to have to weather any storm that might come our way. And especially, I know the board looked at it again, and if as an added layer, we had the conversation when it went to current year funding, because should you have a decline in enrollment within the current year, you have to decrease your budget that year, which had changed. In the past, you weren't held accountable for that. You were held harmless in that year. So I know the board has been having these discussions as we go along every year about the fund balance. So we do look to GFOA, which is the Governmental Finance Officers Association, for because they really do guide governmental entities of what we are for what is best practice. And best practice them is to maintain adequate levels. And really, you're maintaining those to protect not just the district, but the taxpayers as well. And it does help to have stable tax rates. It helps to be able, when we go to sell bonds, and we've seen it, we have the highest, we're one of 6 districts with the highest bond rating in the state. And really the reason is because of our reserves and how they're seeing that we're managing our money. What that means to the taxpayers, we get better interest rates than other districts get, which means that there's less interest to pay, which results in a lower tax rate associated with those bonds. So it really, the impact of our finances can be felt district-wide. When they talk about adequate at GFOA, what does that mean? It's no less than 2 months of operating expenditures. And again, I mentioned some of these that we just do need to consider a variety of factors, which we do. So when I mentioned, like, for example, results-based funding was going away, that was $711,000 in expenditures that had to be assumed somewhere. So we look for that, we plan for it, we keep some fund balance aside or some unbudgeted so that we can assume that in the future, because these are things that we want to keep going. So our picture is it's always fluid. It's moving. So I think that's the important message that I'm trying to get out, is that we do look at this as a board. I know we do. We look at it within our groups as we look at fund balance recommendations. On the actual fund balance reserve page, the top part is dedicated to all of our funds, how much fund balance is in each one of our funds, and how are you going to use it. So we don't have anything in fund deficit, which is a really nice thing to see. I wouldn't expect that for us. They do break it into, and I couldn't put the whole page because it's super long, but just so you know, there is the general fund, which is comprised of M&O indirect and their indirect fund. Then we have our capital projects fund, And they're looked at as groups, almost as separate, separate and checking accounts, so to speak. I guess that's the easiest way to put it. But in our capital projects, you can see it's the unrestricted, the bond, the adjacent ways, and the school plant fund, because per statute, school plant first goes towards anything that you might have of a capital nature before it can be applied to M&O. So that's why it would be included in the capital projects. Then we have our special revenue funds, which is the classroom site fund, civic center, which is our rentals, and then food service is just an example of some of the big ones. We did go through and we did go in there and you'll be able to see it does show like fund balance that exceeds the budget capacity. So what is truly unreserved, because the budget balance carry forward is truly reserved part of your fund balance because you can spend it. And it goes through, we do not set anything aside for retirement contributions or OPEB, which is post-retirement benefits like health insurance. We only have a few people left on the plan. The district no longer pays for health insurance for retirees. So, or nobody new can join that program. So we don't have any expenses set aside for that. So that's why you will see some zeros, but a lot of it is in that financial stability line. And then there are a series of questions asked if we have a formal governing board policy, and do we have a targeted percentage, or do we have another factor? And we did, as we've discussed before, we have that 2 months minimum plus additional factors we look at. I do know that food service is included in our targeted fund balance, and food service actually by federal government is 3 months operating expenditures on hand. So we look at those things too. It's just not a one size fits all. It's just not, you can just apply a 2 month operating to it and call it a day. And then just to give you, just so you can get the feel for how we talk and how we do budget, and this is a lot for anybody who might be viewing or in the audience, when you look at our M&O, our unrestricted fund balance is $6 million. But if you look at our annual expenditures and you look at 12 months and 2 months of operating, if you broke our expenditures down into 12 months, is 6.8. We're not even quite at that target. You know, we're trying to get there. We do look at some of our other funds to supplement that. So that's why nothing is one picture. We look at the entire picture in Madison and how we use our funds to operate efficiently. And then our capital fund, well, while you may see a large ending fund balance, we do have a larger budget balance carry forward. And I point this out because I've had people ask me about this one before. Just so that everybody knows, a textbook adoption now is up to $3 million for Madison. And then just a computing device refresh is $1.5 million. Just those two items alone take up almost half of our reserve, of which we know both will be coming up next year or the year after. So this is why we maintain these balances. The classroom site fund, these are a prop $301 that aren't called that anymore, but anybody that knows them by that. And we do have a healthy balance in there. We have 4.3 million. That equals about an annual, the revenue that we received, 4.3 last year, and our expenditures were 3.6. The difference between that is, yes, we didn't spend that 670, but then what we look at, we really feel now 4.3 is probably a really good target for a fund balance. So we don't need to increase it. So next year we can look at putting that $670,000 toward teacher salary increases that we know, hopefully, that we can sustain. We want to keep that $4 million in reserve though, because currently we are receiving this year, or in 23, we received $708 per student, but we only jumped to that $700 per student in 2022. Like that's only 2 years. Prior to that, from the prior 6 years, it was between $327 and $425. So if it, and it's solely based on tax collection. So should we drop in any year, and it can drop that quickly, we want to make sure that we're covered to be able to pay for it. So I really feel 4.3 is adequate, but I also think it needs to be there. So that's just a short little, I guess, synopsis of the planning, the type of planning that we do in Madison to make sure that we are solvent and that we can make it through hard times. And that's it. Are there any questions?
Questions, comments? Ms. Kazi?
Thank you for that very thorough, extensive report. And I just wanted to comment. So GFOA has a 2 months. So in the nonprofit world, it's 3 to 6 months. Operating is generally what we target. And what I will say is, as we look for grants, that determines the sustainability of your organization, and they look at your budgeting and your budget balance if they want to invest in you. And I think because of the way that money has been managed in Madison so well, it puts us in a good position as we seek grants in the future. So thank you for all of your hard work. It means so much.
Ms. Thompson?
To piggyback off of that, I'd also like to say it puts us in an extraordinary position to have a better bond rating, which in the long run actually saves us money and allows us to spend money that we have for those bonds on better facilities, because we're not having to pay increased rates for those bond ratings. I also wanted to add that I think that having a rollover is like a rainy day fund essentially is so important. Some people have forgotten that 15 years ago, when the state was in financial crisis, the state borrowed 3 or 4 months of funding from schools. Instead of paying it at the end of the fiscal year, they decided to pay it in the following fiscal year. That has continued for 15 years. There's about $800 million that the state has borrowed interest-free for 15 years. And if there was ever another financial crisis, it can't be borrowed again. If there's ever another crisis, the state doesn't have that same rainy day fund that they can use to go back. But we have some rainy day funds that can help bridge us if there's a problem over one fiscal year or potentially two. So I'm grateful that we in our school district have the rollover and that we are thoughtful about how we are planning, not just for the current fiscal year, but future fiscal years, not using one-time dollars for permanent hiring or permanent salary increases, because all of those are commitments that are made that are very hard to undo, and we are thoughtful about those steps. So thank you for all the work that you do.
Ms. Gresham?
Yes, I just want to thank Ms. Garvey for her presentation and for always handling these seemingly endless new reporting requirements, always with professionalism. So, thank you for that.
Ms. Spear?
I don't have much new to add, so I'm not going to go on very long, except that I do remember that 15 years ago and watching Ms. Garvey have to put up literal posters of what we were going to have to cut. And we had Scenario A, Scenario B, and Scenario C. And it's wonderful to still be here and see that we have a robust budget that has been so effectively managed and really forecasted. And so thank you so much to you and your team, and to Dr. Guerin and Ms. Marshall for following through on this and seeing us through such a range of time.
You're welcome. Well, I would just like to say the support, it's not just myself, of course, because it goes all the way to the taxpayers who supported our overrides and our bonds, who've put their trust in us as a group, and administration and everybody and the teachers for just getting behind this, because it could be a very different picture if that wasn't the case. And and I'd also like to thank everybody in the business office that helped get this report together, because it was really almost a month later than normal when we received it, and it was big crunch. So we were all frantically working. So I really appreciate all their support, and I just want them to know how much I appreciate them.
Yes, I just want to thank you. And as here watching you, you can actually see you actually enjoy this stuff, which is great. So, because I don't, but I mean, people like you are make it, and all your staff make it possible. And you've heard this before, but I have to keep going back to the fact when I got on the board, our reserve was real easy to calculate. It was 0. and we've gone through different, and this is not just, your presentation shows it takes commitment, but that in itself takes culture, a culture of this is how we do things. And, Madison has done that, a lot under your leadership, but a lot of different people, all the administration really takes that culture. We are very lucky. We work hard at it, but we're also very lucky to have that ingrained in our culture. So thank you. So with that,
I move that we approve the 2022-2023 annual financial report and authorize publication of the district-wide summary per state statute.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Spears, seconded by Ms. Thompson. Please vote.
I vote aye.
And that passes unanimously. That brings us down to discussion of future meetings. Dr. Guerin.
President Holcomb, members of the board, cabinet and guests, it's hard to believe we're planning the second meeting of October. This year is flying by. So this, of course, will be after fall break. We'll have an executive session to go over my goals. We also have a school showcase from Rose Lane and You Make a Difference, Shining Star from MTA and Rose Lane. We'll have a special guest, Arizona Teacher of the Year semifinalist, Jessie McKinley, will attend the board meeting. As we scroll down, we will have another Miss Garvey extravaganza, the bond and override report. And then, of course, Miss Marshall's talented staff will present some student services updates, including our work on inclusion with special education students. We'll have some more policy work, and we just received several more policies from ASBA that you'll see on future meetings. And then it'll take us all the way up to November. Any questions?
Any questions, comments, or additions from any member of the board? Ms. Gresham, do you have anything to add?
No, thank you.
Okay. That did remind me just to offer, we have the Madison is hosting the Arizona Teacher of the Year award ceremony, and that's phenomenal. Coming up on the 14th. Seeing no other additions related to the future meetings, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Spears, seconded by Ms. Thompson. Please vote.
I vote aye to adjourn.
The anticipation builds. That passes unanimously. We are adjourned.
Thank you, Karen. Good night.
Thanks, everyone. Good night.
We had a long day. I was just thinking of. We didn't talk about the interfaith breakfast.